Good evening to everyone. To those that are present in the house on tonight, to those that are online, truly we thank God for one more opportunity to come and further study from His holy word. And as it was said in our prayer on tonight, we thank our deacon for our devotion service. Lord, don't let us just be hearers of these lessons, but let us be doers and help us, Lord, to get a full understanding. And as always, my prayer that the Holy Spirit would just take control on tonight. Speak through me and reveal unto us what God would have us to understand about these lessons, to learn. We are still in the Old Testament. We're still in the book of Leviticus. And on tonight, our subject is obedience in feast. And it didn't say just one feast, but it said in feast. I think Deacon Gilbert, he read before we went into this, they have been instructed on celebrating the Day of Atonement.
Yes, sir.
If I'm not mistaken, I think it was about the 10th day that he read in our scriptures. And our scripture reading tonight come from Leviticus chapter 23, verses 33 through verse 43. Leviticus 23, verse 33 through 43. And again, obedience in feasts. And when he's talking about being obedient in these, now God has given them instructions.
Yes, sir.
On how they were to carry these feasts out.
Yes, sir.
And if you're going to obey Him, you're going to do it the way He says it should be done. And also, when we talk about being obedient, be submissive unto God. And we started verse 33 tonight, and it say, and the Lord spoke unto Moses. If y'all notice, on most of these lessons, they start off with the same thing. And the Lord spoke unto Moses, the leader, concerning His chosen people. And it's just like with His church, the Lord still speaks through His leaders, you know. So that's how it started out. And the Lord spoke unto Moses, because He's getting ready to give them some instructions. And this thing is going to go on for 7 days. Verse 34 says, speak unto the children of Israel. You know, and again, like I was saying, these lessons in the Old Testament are an example of what God is how God is speaking to us in the New Testament. And all these lessons that we are studying about, they are pointing toward the church. These lessons are pointing toward the church, the coming of Jesus Christ, because we do know who paid for the church, who bought and paid for it.
Yeah. Yep.
And He bought and paid for it with His precious blood. And the fact that He bought the church and He paid for us, He paid to snatch us out of sin. Well, God kept reminding them, I'm the one that snatched you out of Egypt. You know. And so let's not forget that. And that's why I say He's telling Moses to speak unto the children of Israel, saying, this is not Moses. Moses is just a voice. And it's always my prayer, just a voice for the Holy Spirit. He said, the 15th day of the 7th month shall be the feast of the tabernacle of 7 days unto the Lord. Notice what he said. The feast of the tabernacle for 7 days unto the Lord. Now, this is what you're doing. You're not doing it unto Moses. You're doing this unto the Lord. And it's talking about the feast of the tabernacle. Now, that one is dealing with the 15th day of the 7th month shall be the feast of the tabernacle of 7 days. but before I go into the 35th verse, now we are still aware of the time, right? The time that this is still 1445 BC. So this means that they are still at Mount Sinai. And we know that they was at Mount Sinai for 2 years. So what he's telling them now, he's actually pointing toward how they are to do all of these things when they get over into the promised land. See? Now they are dealing with tents now. They're still making tents. They're going to make tents the whole 40 years that they're in the wilderness because they're going to be traveling. But when they finally get a tabernacle, you know, they are to continue to carry these events out. And this is for the Feast of the Tabernacle. So we know that, are they in tabernacles at this time?
They haven't built it yet.
They're in what at this time?
Tents.
Tents. You know, so he's preparing them. God always prepares us for tomorrow. It's a sad thing when we get so caught up into the time that we're in. And that's why when God told us to put on the whole armor, did he tell us to put anything on our back? Because you got to always be moving forward for the Lord. I got your back covered. So you got to be moving forward. Now, notice what he said. 35, on the first day shall be a holy convocation. Ye shall do no survival work therein. Now, when he said that this is the 7th month, this is not July. This is actually September. Now, there's another reason. Notice now, we're going to study about different feasts. They're going to be having different feasts on different days. Now, on this one here, and the reason that these feasts are starting, all of these things that he's telling them to do, they're going to be feasts. And notice, now when you get into these feasts, they're going to have to offer some sacrifices. Now this sacrifice that they are offering, are they giving money to God?
No. Sacrifice.
This is not about them giving no money to God. But how does it equate to us then?
Service.
And money.
Yeah.
Service and money. You know. Because these animals that they was bringing, they weren't used for no, they didn't go to the market with no dollars. They went to the market with animals. They went to the market also with stuff from the crops. We don't come here putting no animals out here. We don't come in here with no groceries. So we come in here with what?
Money.
And
Service.
sales.
Yeah.
Present your what?
Body.
A living sacrifice. So this stuff they were preparing then. Now when it comes to us, it's our money and our sales. And God is concerned about our money. And let me tell you something, when you don't give God his money, you're going to struggle in life. And it's something we have to learn how to do, you know, and it's not an easy thing. But it's something to take time, deep.
Pastor, what we have to realize is that everything that they use, everything that they sacrifice, God gave it to them in Egypt.
Yeah.
This is not cattle they raised. This is cattle that Egypt gave them when they left Egypt. This is a gift from God. Now they give it back to God. And what Pastor is saying with us, God bless us with a job, and we are to give back to God as He blessed us.
Right.
Same thing. This is the same thing they're doing. Everything they got comes from God.
Come from God. Yeah.
Everything we get comes from God. We don't want to acknowledge it. We don't want to admit it.
Yeah.
But be honest, everything we get comes from Him.
Yeah.
No, he's right. And I was saying it, but he broke it on down a little. Now, and another thing, with this being the 7th month,
Right.
all of these things, they're going to have 7 different days that they're going to have to bring offering to God. 7 different days, starting on the 15th day of the 7th month. Now, do anyone know what's so It's something special about the 15th day of the 7th month. The 7th month meant that this is autumn.
Yeah.
Now what happened in autumn?
Harvest. Harvest.
She said,
Harvest.
harvest. All the crops gonna do. Now you know, I don't know if you are, but I come up in the country. And my daddy had a garden. He planted that garden around about May or something like that. You can start getting stuff out of the garden.
Oh, man, it's late. You get that going in March and April.
When you plant them and stuff. But when they get up and they start producing. Now when do they stop producing? Autumn, at the end of the year. So at the end of the year, they have harvest. They have brought all of their harvest in. And so when God is asking them for these things, that's when they have brought all of their harvest in. So at this time of the year, when he asks for these 7 days, they're going to have plenty.
Yes, sir.
Because God has blessed them with plenty.
That's right.
And when God blesses us with plenty, God expects for us to do what? Give him a little bit of the plenty? Now you shaking your head, but no. If he blessed us with a lot, he don't want you coming to him with a little bit. And when you learn to give him more, all you saying is, Lord, I appreciate what you're giving me. And if you gave me all of this and I'm giving back, Lord, you're going to give me back more. See, God is, and let me tell you something, God does not need none of this. God don't need no cows, God don't need no grain. He don't need none of this. But he want to see, will you be obedient to me?
Yeah.
Will you show that I appreciate what you gave me? And the reason you show me up by giving it back. So this is the beginning. This is the end of the harvest season. So when he's going to be asking them for these things for 7 days, they're going to have a lot to give. Because they have taken in a lot. Now, like I was saying, this is still 1445 BC. But when they finally get to where they're going, this is when he wants them to really get off into doing these things. Because what the land is going to give them, God told them, I'm going to send you to a land that's flowing with milk and honey.
Yeah.
You see? So God does want something in return. Don't be stingy with God. You know? So if you had well, he's gone now. But I don't believe every time you and Deacon Turner wanted to go out, he's going to run by what's that place where you, not Chick-fil-A? No, I'm trying to think about that place where you get fish.
Red Lobster.
Now, what I would do, you want to take your woman to Red Lobster. But there's another fish place, I can't think of the name of it.
Papa Rose, Papa C.
No, I'm talking about way smaller than Papa does.
No, I know you're talking about. I can't think of the name of it right now.
Yeah.
I know what you're talking about.
But what I'm saying, if every time Tappan get ready to take her out, he's gonna take her to this little
One-star restaurant.
fried fish place.
Yeah.
Well, when it's actually frozen fish. But no, take somebody to Papa does. And that's the way God does us. He gives us the best. You know. Every time. You know, so now keep in mind, this is during the end of the harvest season. And what God is really asking them to do to them is to show me that you thank me for what I'm doing for you.
Every day.
That's the bottom line. And in that verse 35, on the first day shall be a holy convocation. He shall do no servile work therein. Now, what he's saying now, that word convocation is going to be a holy ceremony. These things which you all are doing, that is right, they are holy. So don't take them for granted. It's holy. This means something to God. It's sacred. And ye shall do no servile work therein. Now, in other words, on this day that he's talking about here, you are not to go out and work to bring income in for yourself. Now, there is going to be a lot of work that they're going to be doing on these 7 days, but they're going to be working for the Lord. Because they got to carry out all of these things. They got to bring stuff. And then when we get further over in the lesson, there's going to be some more work. I'll talk about that when we get further over in the lesson. But they are not to do no labor. And all of these days, so the first day, this is not the Sabbath day. Verse 36, 7 days you shall offer, see it right there?
Yes, sir.
An offering made by fire unto the Lord. And on the 8th day shall be the holy convocation unto you. And you shall offer an offering made by fire unto the Lord. It is a solemn assembly, and you shall do no servile work therein. So, but they're going to be, the work that they're going to be doing is dealing with what they're going to be bringing, giving to him. Now, real quickly, if somebody would turn over to Numbers real quickly. Numbers 29. Numbers, the 29th chapter. Yeah.
So they gonna meet for church, or they gonna meet
In other words, it's gonna be like 7 days you're gonna be in church.
here, sir.
You know. Because normally the Sabbath day, and after the Sabbath day, they can go out and do 6 days of labor on the Sabbath day. But these 7 days, they all gonna be just as the Sabbath day.
Holy convocation.
Yeah. And he want them to be holy. Did anyone get in Numbers 29?
Yeah.
Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to read about 3 verses to let us see that God is telling them what to do every day. Somebody read verse 12, I believe.
And on the 15th day of the 7th month, ye shall have an holy convocation. Ye shall do no servile work, and ye shall keep a feast unto the Lord 7 days.
That's verse 12. Look up a little further. You see something about the first day. A little further down. 12, Numbers 29 and 12.
No, it doesn't say anything about the first day.
It should be right in that area somewhere, between 12 and 35. So, in other words, now read verse 17.
And on the 2nd day.
That's what I wanted right now. See, one of them, just up there a little bit further, is going to show you about the first day.
Okay. You want to read the 2nd day? I don't see the first day. I'm sorry. Maybe somebody else see it. I don't see it.
Okay, so it should be starting around about 29, about 12, unless it might be a little bit further up than 12. But 17 tells us what to do on the 2nd day. And he's going to be telling them how to do it. And remember, you got to be obedient and do it how God tell you to do it. You just can't come in there doing it the way you want to. You know. Now go to verse 20.
And on the 3rd day.
On the 3rd day. And now we're not going to read all this because it's going to take us too much time. But he's telling them what to do and how to do it. Read 23.
On the 4th day.
On the 4th day. So he tells them every day how to do what he wants them to do. You know. So we have to learn how to be obedient. We have to learn how to do stuff the way God tells us to do. Now Moses is telling them to do that. And he's telling them what thus said the Lord. Now, read verse 35. See if I got this one right.
On the 8th day.
8th day. Now, remember he told them 7 days, right? So what is this 8th day? This 8th day is actually going to be, they to keep it holy too. But he was telling me, y'all going to do all this on 7 days. But the 8th day is going to be the closing ceremony for the program, for the 7 days. You're going to do 7 days, and on the 8th day, you're going to do it with a closing ceremony. And he's telling them what to do on the 8th day. Reverend Joe, I can start telling this church what God tell you to do this on 7, 8 days.
Oh, I know. I know.
He done lost his mind.
Yeah, I know where you're going.
But it's all that. That ain't in the lesson, but it's in Numbers. He told them what to do every day. God is specific on what he tells us to do. Do y'all know why the world is in the trouble it is now? Because we don't do what God tells us to do no more. People want to do what they want to do. Do you know why they had that shooting in the school on yesterday? Yeah, in St. Louis. You know why they keep having these schools and these shootings in the school? We don't want God in our school no more. We don't want prayer in our school no more. And if they had just common, I'm not talking about biblical sin. If you got common sin, when we was coming up, you didn't have no shooting in school. All of this stuff began when they took prayer out of the school. And to take prayer out of the school is open the door wide open and tell Satan, just come in and do what you want to. And then after they had a shooting, let's have a virgin prayer. You know what them old people used to say? Why are you going to close the gate and the child's already on the outside?
Good point.
Let prayer back in the school and watch what God will do for these schools. Because it just, to me, it does not make sense for somebody to sit up here and want to go kill innocently children. But when you get a devil, open the door, he's going to do whatever he can do. He comes to steal, kill, and what?
Destroy. That's right.
And keep in mind, God is giving them specifics on what to do. Telling them how to do it for 7 days in a row. Now, I want to ask you all a question. And I want to fast forward to after Jesus come, and after Jesus died, and after Jesus went off the scene. Why did God allow the temple to be destroyed? These things that he's telling them to do, all these sacrificial things, sacrificing these animals and all of this stuff. Now, like I'm going to tell you, all this is pointing toward the temple and the tabernacle. So when Jesus died, the curtain was rented from top to bottom. You could also go to God, so you don't need no more animal sacrifice to get to God.
That's right.
And since they kept doing this in the temple, so God said, you're going to keep doing this, and my son have came and died for me, and you still bringing these animals up into the temple, sacrificing me, I'll tear your temple down.
Tear it down.
Because when Jesus come on the scene, all of this stuff we studying about now is out the door.
That's right.
But you had those diehard Jews, they would not stop it. And you still got some, what do they call them? They got a name for Orthodox Jews. Still have not accepted Jesus. You know. Now Deacon Gibbon read a scripture where the Lord said this is the going forever. But see, this is why come you have to be taught by somebody that God is getting to teach you. Even though he said, but it was going forever for the nation of Israel. But when Jesus come on the scene, it's no more about the nation of Israel. You have to go to John 3:16, for God so loved the world. Not just about them no more, but they still want it to be just about them. So God said, you're going to keep bringing these things up here to my temple? Sacrificing them after what my son went through? 36 where we was on. So they were bringing stuff, offering. She'll offer the offering by fire unto the Lord. And then verse 37, these are the feasts of the Lords. And when God told them to do that, yeah, they were to do it, the nation of Israel. When ye shall proclaim to be holy convocation, to offer an offering made by fire unto the Lord, a burnt offering and a meat offering, a sacrifice and a drink offering, everything upon his day. And these things is simply saying, if God told them to do all of these things, and all of these offerings that they would bring, the meat offering, the drink offering, the burnt offering, and they had plenty to bring to God for these 7 days, again, because it was the end of the harvest season. And they had a lot to give unto God. So it wasn't like God was putting them in no bind, because they had plenty. And another thing, when you do what God tells you to do, I'll bless your crops. You can have abundance crops, but start cutting God short. And you don't realize you call yourself cutting God short, but who are you cutting short? Your own self. See, and he wants us to know this about them in the Old Testament. You bring me plenty, I'll give you plenty. Because you bring me plenty, show me, I know where my plenty came from. And if he gave me plenty this year and I gave him plenty, what about next year? And I don't care about the land. If God does not give you no sunshine and no rain, the land can't produce.
That's right. You don't.
Yeah, the temple was destroyed after Jesus' death, after he split the curtain. They continued to have all these sacrifices, offer the animals at the temple. And God will let you go so long with your foolishness. 37 and 38, beside the Sabbath of the Lord, and beside your gifts. You bring a gift to God, right? Where did you get the gift from? Deacon Gilbert was telling you that.
Everything.
When they left out of Egypt, he gave them plenty.
He did. Gave them that freedom first.
And then when they got hungry, God,
Fed.
when they got thirsty, God,
Gave them water. It's all God.
it's all about God. But now we're about ourselves. We're leaving God out. This is why America's in the condition that she's in. This is why our children are in the condition that they're in. Because we don't have time to raise our children up in the church. Let me tell you something. If mama would not have raised me up in the church, the kind of mindset I had on coming to the city, all these bright lights, all the action in the city, but there was always a limit on how far I would go. And guess what? We're dealing with the limit. When I went past the limit, it was something on this shoulder, and it was something on this shoulder. And the one over here trying to push me a little up, but the one over here reminding me of how your mama raised you. And not only how your mama raised you, but what is your last name, boy?
Watch yourself.
You respect that name of your,
You better.
Watch it.
let me say it like, of your house. And he's telling you, you respect your name as the house of Israel. You know. So if we don't raise our children in the church, they're gonna have the one on this is the left shoulder. He's gonna be there, but nothing on the right shoulder to help them. And this one on the left shoulder, all he want to do is just see how much trouble he can get you in.
That's it.
38 beside the Sabbath of the Lord. And keep in mind, this is not just Sunday. This is included in those 7 days that Sister Porter read. Now, if y'all want to read about all of those days, go back to Numbers 29, 12 through 35, and you'll see what he was telling them to do on these different days. Beside the Sabbath of the Lord, we're back at 38, and beside your gifts, and beside your vows, and beside your free will offering, you know. Now, even with this, now when it comes to the gifts and the vow, now they could make their own decision on the free will. They had a choice. But the vows and the gifts unto God, this mandatory. Now don't you try to cut me short here. Now on your free will, I'm going to give you, you can make that choice there. But let me share something with you. Even on the free will, give it to God. And what they say, you can't beat God given. And I know it's true. And which we give unto the Lord. And my brothers and my sisters, the world says, a lot of people in the world say they don't want to have nothing to do with the church because all they do is give their money to the pastors. Now we know better than that. You know. Now he did tell you, now don't put a muzzle on the ox to thread the field. And another thing, now they worried about giving all their money to the pastor, right? What about the government? But not only that, you give your money to the mayor.
Yes, true.
You give your money to the governor. You give your money to the senators. You give your money to those in the House of Representatives, and then you give your money to the president. And we give plenty of money to our governor, and a lot of people not satisfied. He won't even take care of business if we have another freeze. We're going to be left out in the cold again.
Yep.
But do you hesitate by giving that money?
No.
Why? Because it's mandatory. And look at the difference of them and God. God gives you a choice. And when you make the right choice, you keep this in mind. You can't beat God given.
You can't do it.
You just can't beat him. And I'm not just talking about you can't beat him because he's giving his son. You can't beat him for having a roof over your head. You can't beat him when you go into the cupboard. I can choose what I want. And then when I look in the cupboard what got stuff in there, guess what? If I don't want that, I can go to the store.
Watch yourself now. Watch yourself. Watch yourself. You want to, that's right.
If you want to.
You can do it.
And you ought to thank God for that. Because you got me fixed up, I can do all of this. And I don't care how high price to get. Yeah, they bother me, these high prices. But what I want,
Go get it.
I will get it.
That's right. God bless.
Now, I'm not trying to brag on myself, but I give God what he requires out of me. Now, when you get into the New Testament, we know that they had a standard in the Old Testament,
True.
which was 10%.
Right.
And that 10% was going because of a four-legged lamb being slain. You give me 10% because a four-legged lamb was slain, that I could have a relationship with God. But in the New Testament, it wasn't about no four-legged lamb.
No.
It was God's only begotten Son. And if God gave us better in the New Testament,
Go ahead and go there.
we ought to go beyond that 10%.
That's what he moved it.
Let me, Joe, you know something I disagree with a lot of people on? People talking about how good it was in the old days. That's how people said. Man, they said, man, in them old days were good. It wasn't good when it was my time to get up in the morning at 5 o'clock in the morning and go in there and start a fire in a wood heater. You know what's good? When I could go to the wall and set a thermostat. Push a button. You know what's good? When mama tell me in the summer, go out there and pull some corn and get some greens while you're out there and get some peas. But you know what's good now? I can go to Kroger's and get them. You know what's good now? It was 8 of children. And mom and daddy was in the car too. And when they packed us in there like sardines, there wasn't no air conditioning in it. But when we get in the cars now, and if there's too many people at the house,
Central Air.
if there's too many at the house, we don't want to put too many in the back, we can get another car to take us where we want to go. This is what I call the good old days.
Amen.
And when it used to rain back in those days, every now and then you had to put a bucket down there to catch water dripping down.
Yes, sir. Wow.
But the good old days, you got the television on. Someone got the earphone. If it's raining, you don't even know it. These are the good old days. Every generation, it gets better. Because when I used to watch the TV, we were sitting there on a black and white TV. And then when it gets static, one of us got to go outside and turn the antenna. And while you turn it now, and then you give it, don't turn it again. You have to turn that antenna to get a clear picture. But now I'm sitting up looking at color TV on a high definition screen. These are the good old days to me. I don't want to go back to those old days. And I didn't finish that about the car with all those packed in there like sardines. No air conditioning. Yeah, it was an air conditioner. They had some windows on the side like this. You want somebody, you turn them like that. Joe don't know nothing about this. You turn the window like that and they blow air down on it.
Yes, sir.
We want to go back to the fields, the cotton fields.
Thank you. Pulling a cotton sack.
99-degree sun.
And you don't be playing out there in that field. Somebody gonna get on you. You don't be standing around. And you didn't have bottled water. You get it over there with a dip of water and everybody drink out the same dipper. And I'm trying to say that because of how good God, for every generation, this God that we serve is getting better and better.
That's right.
Now I can tell my TV, give me a rifleman.
Watch out. Come on, man.
Give me prime time Thursday night football. And they just talking to it.
Yes. Is that amazing?
Look how far.
Look how far God. And we act like we don't appreciate nothing God does for us. That's why we should give gifts, give an offering, give unto God what God is asking us. And notice how that 38th verse closed out. You give it unto the Lord. That's why when I give, now people misusing in the church, that's between them and God.
That's true, too. That is true. That is true.
One thing and I can boldly say this about our finance team here at this church. You don't have to worry about them and your money. And you don't have to worry about your money dealing with me. I do not touch no money. We have a finance team to handle the money. There are a lot of churches, when I go to the conventions and stuff like that, when them churches get ready to ask for something, they got a checkbook with the church name on it and write. I'm not asking for none of that. I just let them know when I'm going to leave, what it's going to cost. Because sometimes some of these preachers misuse those books. Now you can give a check. There's no way I'm going to misuse it, but I don't even want it. Because I don't want nobody else to think that I'm doing something like this. Because if they think that they're doing something like that, that might keep them out of heaven. And that's between them and God, but I don't want to even make nobody even think like that, Brother Trotter. If me keeping my hands off the book goes, in other words, I'm like, it's not expedient. There's nothing wrong with me doing it, but it's not expedient.
Healthy.
Yeah.
Influence.
And now, boy, y'all should have been with him and I. But we found out, I'll talk about it some other time. It doesn't matter about the size of your church. Mm-hmm. What does it matter, Reverend? The health of the church.
The health.
If your church is healthy.
That's right.
Oh, we did some research, man.
We got a healthy church.
We got a healthy church.
It's a small church.
Yeah.
I learned a lot of them.
Oh boy, it was great.
They been on it, man.
Yeah. So I ain't gonna stay there too long. I gotta move on. Yeah. Okay, so also on the 15th day, we're on 39 now. The 15th day of the 7th month, when you have gathered in the fruit of the land. See it right there? Mm-hmm. Y'all see it right there? Yeah. And I have been bringing this up. In the 15th day of the 7th month, when you have gathered in the fruit of the land, whose land is it?
God's man.
Who makes the fruit grow?
Rain and the sun he allowed to shine. The rain, he does.
He said, you shall keep the feast unto the Lord 7 days. And the first day shall be the Sabbath. And on the 8th day shall be the Sabbath. Treat all of these days like they are the Sabbath day.
Holy day.
This is what I'm telling you all to do about these feasts that you're going to be celebrating this time of the year. Keep every day like it's the Sabbath day. It's not the Sabbath. That Sabbath day was on a Saturday. But I want you to treat all 7 of these days. And 8, because I'm going to name one 8 on the closing ceremony. But treat it like the Sabbath day. Remember the Sabbath and keep it holy.
What he said.
Now, you know I got commentary. Matthew Henry, I was reading him to see what he said about that. And this is what he had to say to the church. He said, the church won't honor this because he said the Lord told him, I want you to do this for 7 days. I want you to treat every one of these days, actually 8 days, as the Sabbath day. Matthew Henry said, in our modern day churches, he said, we don't even treat the Sabbath like it is the Sabbath day.
Let alone 6 months.
He said, all we want to do is get up, come, no Sunday school. And y'all know the Sunday school haven't bounced back. And the Sunday school is the gateway to Christianity. And we got some excellent teachers at this church. Take it from the pastor. But we won't even come to Sunday school anymore. All we want to do is come to the 11 o'clock hour. Now, when he's telling them this Sabbath day was all day, what about if the church go out? There's somebody that's never been out with the church. Now, we're talking about 7 days, right? So as Matthew Henry said, there are activities going on in the church 7 days a week. Some people don't know nothing about them. But he said, all this is symbolic of what God wants you to do if you're going to be part of your church. If you're going to have activities going through the week, and then there's one that the whole church body should be coming to. Can anybody tell me what that one is? Say it again, louder.
Bible study.
That's one right there. This is what Matthew Henry was saying. This is symbolic of that. But he said we have people in our modern day churches. All they want is the 11 o'clock service. And then now, y'all know Pastor Stewart used to keep us in here about 2.5 hours. Right? And now, after an hour and 45 minutes, I started getting some funny looks. Job and them be up there with me. We used to go 2.5 hours. Now we're not 45 minutes off of that. And now if we go past the hour and 45 minutes, I get some funny looks. But my mind is made up. This is God's church.
That's right.
And I'm going to run this service until God said, turn it out. Because he said, remember the Sabbath morning and keep it holy.
No, they didn't.
Huh?
7 days.
The Sabbath day and keep it holy. You got 6 days to do everything else you want to do. And then God is so good to, if there's something that you want to watch on television, you can still watch it. How? Record it. See, my wife get on me. Because Sunday, I'll be up to about 3 o'clock in the morning. I've been watching 3 football games. I've been watching Astros. Why don't you go to bed? But God got it fixed while I can still. I love sport. But sports does not come before God. I'm going to do what I have to do here first. Now I go over there, and I know it's not healthy to stand up there to no 3 o'clock in the morning, Reverend Willie. I know. But guess what? Guess what? I can get up when I get ready now because I'm retired.
I do everything. Amen. I do it every day.
So I got so many reasons to just thank God. I got too many reasons to thank God than to complain. And he's good to me. Not only that, I can speed it up because I don't watch commercials. Fast forward. This is such a good God.
Yes, sir.
God got it fixed where we don't have to put anything before him.
That's what I was gonna say. You can see people, they get angry and in the club and it's 2 o'clock, you gotta go home and say, wait a minute, you can't stay in church.
Yeah.
You know, you hear me?
Yeah.
Hey, the lights come up, hey, you got to go, wait a minute.
Last call for alcohol.
Yeah, and you can't go to church, you know? You can't go to church and be hollow.
That's right.
And then they got some places got $20 cover charge. Gonna keep the roof rust out. What? Yeah, you know, I'm sorry. Keep the roof rust out. $20, you get in $20.
You said $20. I said, what?
Yeah. I don't know where you're going to get about with no 20.
$20. You know, they say, okay, then, but look here. You can't go to the church.
Yeah.
Amen.
Can't go to the church.
Well, at those ballparks,
You got a point.
Yeah.
now you can go to probably I don't know what they call it now because I don't buy them anymore. 6-pack. I'm just gonna throw some figures out. If you could get a 6-pack for $5 for 6 beers, but when you go to the stadium, one beer costs you $8. And guess what? You don't mind buying it. Am I? You act like I said something wrong.
That hurt my feelings, man.
And we went to the big 3, man, and I was like, Pastor was like, wait a minute, come on, we need some help. I help you. I say $6 for soda water. I got 2-3 grandkids right here. I'm like, man, I'm from the big brother.
He gave them people a great chewing out when we took the kids to the ball game, but he did it as a Christian. And they was end up laughing about it. When we found out that, how much was the soda?
$6.
And how much was the popcorn?
10.
And William gave them, man, he schooled them, but he did it in a Christian-like way. They were just smiling and everything.
Yeah, I was like,
You know.
man, I'm gonna be broke. I had a few dollars.
Now we can go to these games and fill a stadium up,
Yeah,
but then we come here,
And that's right.
yeah,
Don't have that same attitude.
you know.
yeah, it's still is.
Now, we're talking about this, the 39, where he was talking about these feasts, where you come and when you are given unto the Lord. Now, let me share something with you all. God is concerned about how we give. He's concerned about the mindset that you have when you give. And it didn't start in 1445 BC. And I think I listened to Joe, who did an excellent job on teaching on last week. It didn't start in 1445 BC. It started when Adam and Eve had 2 children.
Yes, sir.
He had one named Cain,
You on point.
and Cain was a tiller of the ground.
Yes, sir.
And he brought the fruit of the ground unto the Lord. Now, y'all listen to what I'm getting ready to say now, because I'm going to ask you a question. Cain, a tiller of the ground, he brought the fruit of the ground unto the Lord. Abel, a keeper of the sheep, he brought the firstling of the flock and the fattest thereof unto the Lord. The Lord rejected Cain, but he accepted Abel. Did anyone catch why he rejected one and accepted the other?
He gave him the best out of all he had.
Give the best.
That's right. Abel gave the firstling.
Yeah, best.
He gave the best that he had. And not only was he was the fattest. But when Cain brought his, okay, so since it's out, here, Lord, take this.
That's how people do.
Since you want to offer the Lord, here, just take, here, Lord, here's my fruit right here. No, I'm gone. I did what I was supposed to do. It was their attitude.
Attitude. That's the key word right there.
And if it's caught on what kind of attitude you have when you're giving God, and keep in mind, God did not need no fruit, nor did God need no fat calf.
Obedience.
And this subject is about obedience to God, respect to God, submission unto God. So those two came, and it was their attitude. And because of his attitude, God rejected what he was trying to give him.
God rejected.
My brother, I don't want God to reject what I'm trying to give him, because one day I'm going to have to stand before God.
That's right. That's right.
I'm trying to get it right as I possibly can. While I'm done, I got enough errors to anything I can do right now. I know I'm doing it right. I'm going to do the best that I can to do what's best between me and my God. Because God is good to me.
Me too.
He's good to me. Verse 40. And ye shall take you on the first day bark of the I think about this bark that's around a tree. This is what he's actually talking about. But it said bough of a goodly tree, branch of palm tree, and the bough of tree, thick tree, and willows of brook. And ye shall rejoice before the Lord your God 7 days. Now see, he's giving them something to do. So this verse 40, what God is having them to do here, starting with this verse 40, they're gonna, this bark of the gully tree and the branches of the tree, they're gonna be building. They're not gonna do this out here because they are living in tents down here. But when you get in your concealed houses, when you get in the houses that you didn't build, he's laying this foundation now. But when you get into this good flowing land, and when you get into these sealed houses, when you get over into the promised land where I'm sending you. I want you to go and build you a tent like. I want you to go and build your house on the outside. And he's talking to the men, and you got boys of age. And so what I want y'all to do during this celebration, I want y'all to go out there and live in these houses for 7 days. Now, you know what the reason for that? To remind them that when you was in the wilderness,
Where you come from?
now he said, to remind you where I brought you from. When you was out there, these are the kind of houses that you had. Now you're in this concealed house, you know. And he wants us to know that he don't want us to get from where he brought us from.
That's right.
And now we got all of this luxury that I'm just telling you. Don't forget where I brought you from.
That's what the old people used to tell you too. Don't
Huh?
forget where you came from.
Yeah, remember where you came from. Remember when you was in the wilderness. And even though you was out there, I was with you. But now you got all of this luxury.
Yes.
Don't forget about me. And he told all of the men, bring your boys out there. And remind them what the Lord did for you when he was out in the wilderness. We need to remind our children how it used to be and where God has brought us from. This is what this is about. This is what all this stuff. And in verse 4, and ye shall keep it a feast unto the Lord 7 days in the year. Ye shall be a statute forever in your generation. You shall celebrate it in the 7th month. And keep in mind what this 7th month is about. Where you got all of this increase. You got all of this fruit. You got all of this grain. You got all of this corn. Your crops have produced plenty. Because this is round about September. The last of the year.
Yep. Harvest time.
Harvest time. That's what it is. And you're just showing me that you appreciate all that you have. That's what's wrong with us today. We don't thank God. When we sit down at the table when we were children, we don't do it no more. And I didn't do it with my children. They knew how to pray for their food, but we used to sit down at the table. And then we sit down at the table, Mom prayed. Thank God for the food. You know. And see, people are like, I produced the fruit. I planted it. I produced it. I let it rain on it. I let the sun shine. God did all this. And if God did all this, he wants you to show me you appreciate. This is simply what this is. Just show me that you're thankful for what I've done for you. Harvest time. Well, you got plenty. And this is what's wrong with the world today. And this is why come so many people are sick in the world today, because they don't even pray for the food anymore. Now, we do know this. When we came up, food was more healthier. Why? Because we raised it. And we didn't put no steroids in it. We didn't put no chemicals in it. Thank you, Sister Turner. It was naturally. But now with all these steroids, with all these chemicals in it, that's more reason to pray. Because if you believe God is who he is, and I don't care what they put in to grow it, if you ask God to bless it, that it will serve as nourishment for my body. Don't just pray that because you heard somebody. Believe that. And believe they're putting all these chemicals and all these steroids. And let me share something with you. God allowed it because it appears to me if they put these steroids in it and these chemicals in it, look like man ought to be weaker than he used to be. But if you watch track, people breaking records. You watch basketball, they jumping higher. You play football, they put a time on the man the other day, they said we're going 21 miles an hour. So even though they're doing all of these things, but it's not hurting man because he got a God that's sitting up there to take care of the crown of his creation. That's right. And we ain't got enough sense to thank God for that.
Thank you, Lord.
And then let me share this with you. If you think you could go back doing it the old ways, I had a guy in Conroe I was working with. I'm not being racist, but he was a redneck. Now, because he was a redneck, he didn't hate blacks. He hated his own people. He was a redneck. He wanted to stay out all in the country. And he didn't even want to be on that water. He had his own way of doing it. And he decided, I'm going to stop buying chicken, right? He told me, he said, Willie, I'm going to stop buying these chicken, and I'm going to raise my own. He went and ordered a bunch of chicken, right? They bailed the chicken to him after about 6 months. He come crying. Man, it costs too much to feed these chickens. You think about you buying a sack of feed, and how much feed they can eat.
They all you can get.
You can't buy enough to feed. You better out going to the store buying one. Instead of trying to raise them because it costs too much. The chicken feed is too high. You can't compete with the one that's raised on chemicals. I don't know if y'all know, when we come up, we still got a little time, if you wanted a sow to produce good, if you got about 8 or 10 pigs, little piglets, that was good. But now they can get 20 out of them now. Because they have injected stuff in them to make them produce more. And then once they produce more, then they can grow them faster than you could grow them back in the old days. So you can't compete with it now. With the steroids and stuff. But the key to it all is pray to God before you put it in your mouth.
Yes. Amen.
And ask God, Lord, and that's my prayer, that this what I'm eating will be healthy for my body.
That's right.
And her grandmother, when they were going to get on here about the salt shaker.
Pray about it. I'm finna ask you about that.
Yeah, she told them, she sit up there and listen to them, and they told her too many times. They call her mama. You put too much. She finally just said, look, did y'all hear me pray over this food? She said, if I put this whole box of salt on here, and if God bless it, it ain't gonna hurt me. She believed that. But see, a lot of our prayer is because we've heard somebody pray. We don't know, Lord, bless this food that was served, never in my body. We just heard that. But if you know that this stuff is full of steroids and chemicals, and you asking God to protect you from all of that, you got to know what you're praying for. And it had to be taught to our children. Because if they don't, they'll just pray because daddy prayed, mama prayed. And don't know why. And don't know that there's a God, I don't care what they put in it, a God could cleanse it and make it beneficial for this body that we have.
That's right.
There's so much work we need to be done. Which verse are we on? 40. And you shall keep the feast of the Lord 7 days in that year. You shall salute forever in your generation. You shall celebrate in the 7th month. Dealing with their generation. And see, a lot of this thing, when he was talking about their generation, this generation was to teach the next generation that it'll just keep going on and on. Because like I'm telling you, this is 1445 BC. They still out in the wilderness. They still at Mount Sinai. They haven't even made it to the promised land. But they can get over there and do all this. And then they're going to go, even when they build a temple and all of that. And see, and that's another reason you have to explain things, because that scripture that Deacon Gilbert closed in, when he said this is going to be forever, it was to come to an end at the dispensation of the law. Yeah. You can't take this and go over to grace. Now, and I heard you teaching Reverend Joe, and he was right. There are some things in the Old Testament are not for us. All these sacrificial offerings and all this stuff, that is not for us. But those 10 commandments are for us. Being obedient to God is for us. Doing what God tells us to do is for us. And thank God, and I heard you said, I hate to be chopping off of you. We got to thank God that we ain't still under the law. Because a lot of us will be cut down.
Yeah, long time
Long time ago. And then God did a little cutting down in the New Testament when they come up there lying about what they, did you teach that? Yeah. And see, you can tie all this in there. They come up there lying. Struck the husband down. And tell him to haul him out of here. And here come the wife and then, Peter, you didn't have to lie. Struck unharmed. Get him on out of here. Ye shall dwell in booths. See, these booths. 7 days. And that all Israel born shall dwell in booths. Now, that's what I'm saying. He called them booths, but they're the same as those tents. He wants you, when you get over here in this land, I want you to do this. You go out during these 7 days, they are to continue this, what God is telling them to do, and do it how he tells them to do it. And so when they get over there, they build these booths and go out there living in these booths, which is symbolic of living in the tents. And all they're doing is say, Lord, I thank you for where you brought me from. You know, through the wilderness. And as long as we was in the wilderness, God fed us every day. God gave us water every day. And we didn't have no Walmart. We didn't have no J.C. Penney's. But guess what? We never needed no clothes. We never needed no shoes. Why?
God provided it.
God provided it for them. Tell your children what God did for us. Not only tell them, build these booths and show them. I want you to put this into your children's heart. We don't teach our children. Matter of fact, we don't even have control of our children no more. Ain't nowhere in the world. Sister Turner, when I was coming up, Sunday school, the Sabbath day Sunday school was just like Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday at public school. And I was programmed. I didn't get up on Sunday morning. It was just like I got up on 7 days, 6 days a week, 5 days a week going to public school. I was programmed when I get up on Sunday. It was just like it was public school.
Automatic.
Until them guys started playing in my basketball goal. I wouldn't dare tell Mama, they out there playing in my goal. I'm not going today because they're out there hooping in my goal. On the side of our house, on our property.
You had to drive away.
Yeah, I went away mad, but Mama didn't know I was mad. I was programmed. I didn't even question her. Even though I didn't want to go, but I didn't question her because this is natural. This is normal. This is what I do on the Sabbath day. I get up and I go to Sunday school. But now these children said, no, I'm not going. And talk to my children. Ask Christian. Oh, they used to come up with all these excuses. I'm sick today, my stomach hurting. Well, it'll stop when you get to church.
Oh, okay, blessed.
Yeah.
Let's go.
But you going? But you know what? When they got grown, guess what they did? They came and thanked you, Daddy, for keeping us in Sunday school. And these children will do the same thing if we make it mandatory. 43, that your generation may know that I made the children of Israel to dwell in booths when I brought them out of the land of Egypt. And I am the Lord, I'm the one that did all of this. Moses was their leader, but it was me, it was God. And like I'm telling you, all I am is a voice for the Lord. But everything going on here, it's about God. God was the one who called you out of the world. God is the one that gave you a mind to be part of the church. Always give thanks unto the Lord. But by the same token, now, if the Lord speaks to me through you, you better learn how to listen. Because all I'm going to tell you is what thus said the Lord. And if anybody think I'm going to come in here and tell a lie to you about what God said to me, Deacon Webster, if I lie to you about what God said to me when I stand before God, guess what's going to be standing there? That lie that I told. Just like I can tell you, I can go home and watch the football game, the basketball game, God can make me stand before him and everything I said. If he could do it on the ball game, soap operas, or whatever you're watching, you're taking, he's going to be able to run it right back by me. And you can't say, Lord, what do you mean that wasn't you? You're looking at your own self. And I know this. So all I'm going to tell you is what thus said the Lord. Because there's one thing I learned about Moses. There was no greater leader that ever led God's people than Moses. And not only that, Moses was close to the Lord. But Moses made a mistake. And Moses did not get to go into the promised land. And I know this. And if God did this with somebody that was close as he was to Moses, you think I'm going to sit around and play with God? No, I got to tell you the truth. Because he kept Moses out of the promised land. You think I'm going to let somebody else keep me out of heaven? That's our promised land. Nobody's going to keep me out. If I don't make it in, I won't be able to tell God, Lord, well, you know Deacon Webster, as superintendent. No, I don't want to hear nothing. You're not the superintendent, I don't try. You on trial today.
Got to be accountable. Got to be accountable for yourself.
And if you don't know this, and whatever you give to God, we're talking about offerings. And like I was telling you, there's two offerings that you be mindful of today. This harvest, our harvest is when we get on Friday, that we bring and give to the Lord what belongs to him. And not only that, this body, present your body a living sacrifice. How holy and acceptable unto God, and you're not doing anything special. It's just a reasonable service. And God wants his church to show everybody in his world what is the good and perfect will of God. They ought to see it in us. The life that we live. And I'm going to say there's a lot of people think if the church has been invited to be on program somewhere else, you are part of the church. And if you can't go because you're so tired up, you better read these lessons again. Well, he said, I want you to do this 7 days. And if you omit to do something 7 days, when he got into that, we're talking about the day atonement, and you don't do it, what did he say he would do? Give it in your reading? He'll cut you down. He'll cut you out.
Among your people. Those I'm going to kill you. Make it short.
And if you're going to be the church, be the church. Be the church. And all of these days that they were doing this, these 8 days, he kept on telling. Why did he keep telling them it was the Sabbath? Why did he label all these at the Sabbath? Remember the Sabbath. And keep it holy. You know? And he's telling us the same thing. And the Sabbath in America now don't mean anything to people. But it means something to me. And if I fool around and miss church, my week just don't seem right. And don't think when we on vacation, we don't go to church somewhere. Because I just love to find myself in the house of the Lord.
That's good.
You know a hunter, Reverend Joe, deer season come? A real hunter, I don't care what his wife got to say, if he's a real deer hunter. Some real fishermen. But don't fool around and tell them they biting down at the jetties. A real fisherman gonna want to go fishing. So a real child of God ought to want to go to church and praise the Lord.
Yes, that's right. It was.
And I'm not talking about praising this building.
No.
Because the church is in your heart. Now, I do stand firm on the building is the house of the Lord. a holy place. But if it's in your heart, and God said, how did he say that? About what's in your heart? Oh, I can't think of that scripture. Out of the heart flows the issues of life. You just can't keep a Christian out of church. And that's why, another thing, that's why we're trying to do what we're trying to do with this media team now. Because your mom, if she can't get church on Sunday, it messes her day up. And let me tell you, a lot of us not far from that. And when we can't get, when we can't come to church, at least we ought to be able to sit up in our house and still be in church.
That's right.
God knew what he was doing with this media business. This is about God's business. And we living in the age of the media.
That's right. Gotta get it out there.
Listen.
You're right. Gotta get it out there.
And everybody not satisfied with what we're trying to do media-wise. But we better get satisfied. Because God did not shut all this stuff down to come back doing the same thing you were doing. And there's a lot of things that we were doing when he shut it down. We don't need to go back to doing those things.
Amen.
We need to make the churches about God's business. We need to make the church about trying to save souls. And that's what God is about. We need to make the church a place where I can come in here. I don't care if me and Reverend Joe, and it's never happened. If Job and I have a problem, we can't get in no good, you're going to think I'm going to come in here on Sunday with that on my mind?
I gotta get Joe my shit.
I come in here on Sunday thanking God that Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday, and Saturday, you watched over me in this mean, cruel, wicked world that we live in. You done blessed me. You blessed my children.
That's right.
You blessed my family. You blessed my loved ones.
Yes, sir.
So when I come in here to do what he wanted them to do when they received all this property. Lord, I thank you.
Thank you.
And not only, Lord, I can't pay you because you don't, who they sing that song? East.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Lord, I can't pay you, but I can do what?
Say thank you.
And don't make sure you put serve on there.
Thank you, sir.
Because you got to honor God for who he is. He's holy. He's set apart. Not just thank you, sir. And another thing I thank him for. Man, y'all don't know how many people, how many calls I got during this coronavirus thing. Telling me about their loved one was in the hospital on breathing machine. Ventilator. Thank God for this clean air that I'm breathing.
Amen.
I see too many people walking around here with a thing on their back. Oxygen machine. I can still breathe. I got too much to be thankful for.
Amen.
And that's why I come to any kind of feast concerning God, I'm going to celebrate it. And I thank God I don't celebrate Thanksgiving the way I used to. Thanksgiving.
Yeah, the turkey. Yeah, took turkey out.
I had a turkey on the barbecue pit,
Liquid turkey.
and I had a 101 turkey on the counter.
Yeah.
But after I met Jesus, I don't have no more use for the 101 turkey. And I was celebrating then. I used to celebrate Christmas, doing worldly things. I don't celebrate Christmas doing no worldly things anymore.
Super Bowl.
Thank you. New Year's.
Bluebell ice cream.
Stayed up there, waiting for the New Year to come in.
Yeah.
Full of that alcohol. But now when New Year's come in, you know what I do? I hug my wife and say, thank you, Lord. Children, thank you, Lord.
Amen.
These are feasts. These are holidays. I haven't always celebrated 4th of July and all of these things. I didn't used to celebrate them right. But when I met Jesus, I know how to celebrate them now. This is a great lesson. And never forget this. The reason he wanted them to do all this is for them to remember where I brought you from. And one thing I can remember, I used to remember when I was a sinner. But now I'm saved by grace, by God's unmerited favor. And not only that do I thank that I'm saved by grace, but not only am I saved by grace, but guess what God has revealed to me? It didn't come cheap.
Came with a price.
It came with a price for you to be saved. And God said, I got my son and my grandson, I don't want nothing to happen to either one of them. But God said, I got my only begotten son. And they beat him terribly. 39 stripes. They put nails in his hand, rivets in his feet, stuck him in the side, crown of thorns around it, and hung him out on that cross. And it got so bad, he said, Father, why have thou forsaken me? God loved his son, and his son, he gave his son for us, and his son gave his life for us. It cost something. And all of these feasts, a lot of these feasts are dealing with blood.
Yes, sir.
And it cost some blood to wash us as white as snow.
Yes, sir.
And we're going to do these feasts, and anything we do at the church, don't be grumbling about it. Just come on out and do all our celebration. And whatever the church asks you for, if you can't give it, you give the best that you can. And realize this, whatever you give, realize who you're giving it to. And God knows what your best is. Because some of us that could do better, we might be in more trouble than those that striving to do the best that they can. I hope we got something out of this lesson. About obedience in the feast. Whatever we do, celebration, whatever we do, different programs here at the church. And just like he was doing on this 7 days a week, Matthew Henry said that was probably, he don't know if it was some that refused to do it 7 days. He didn't know if it was some that said, no, I'm just going to celebrate the Sabbath. But the Lord told him to do it 7 days. So if the Lord tells us to do something extra at church, and we part of Christ's body, he's the head, we better learn how to do these things.
Yes, sir.
Because I'm not taking no chances. Because when I stand before God, all I want to hear is well done. Now, he can take the good out. Since the scripture say he's going to say it, well done, my good. If he's going to say it, but he could take that out. My faithful servant. You've been faithful of a whole lot of things.
Few things.
Just a few things. Just a few things. Just a few. Now come on up. We need to find out these words mean something in there. Been faithful over a few things. Let us bow our heads. Father God, we come thanking you for another lesson out of your Old Testament. Sometimes these lessons, yeah, they are lessons that we have to study from, that we have to seek the Holy Spirit to help us with these, that we may teach them. As our superintendent said, Lord, more than anything, help us to get an understanding.
Yeah, yeah.
And Lord, we know if your spirit is the one that's doing the teaching, then we can get understanding. Even though they were for the Old Testament, but help us to remember what Paul said, and I think it's 1 Corinthians. These things are an example for us. Because everything was pointing toward the church, and everything was pointing toward your son, who shedded his precious blood, who offered himself unto you for us. Oh Lord, it's not much that you're asking for us. Help us to be a cheerful giver, Lord. And help us to be mindful of Cain and Abel. Help us to give the firstling and the fattest when we come to giving to you, because we can't beat you giving. And we know that you do love a cheerful giver. Lord, we thank you that they was able to get that shooting under control in St. Louis. But the one that was gunned down. The family is burned down. And Lord, just go with them. And Lord, we're praying for our public school. Praying for these people in opposition.
Yes, Lord.
And Lord, we're praying that you would touch us as a people. We're not being racist or nothing, but touch as a people that when we go to these polls, Lord, we could put somebody in these positions that know who you are. And that will rule and govern this nation America according to your holy Bible. Because, Lord, if we get people in there to do this, we know that it will make a better nation.
Yes, Lord.
And Lord, continue to protect our schools, even though they took it out, but the church is praying, Lord. That you would just override what they are doing concerning our schools. And Lord, that you just come in and protect these children. In the precious name of Jesus is our prayer. Amen, and we thank you.